Alright, so a lot of people have been asking me how I do my sub 1 minute boss builds, and I'm gonna go through that. Why am I doing it through a stream? Because I feel like it, I guess. I don't know. It's just what I want to do. For starters, I'm gonna go through all of the relevant and important information, but let me collect my death ergo first so I can show you guys. There is one extremely... well, actually that was the wrong way of saying it. There are a lot of important details, and I want to try and go over as many as I can. But for starters, let's just go back to the hotel. I want to make this emphatically clear. This build can be scaled down to new games and new game plus ones. What I'm going to show you are builds for new game plus 2 and beyond. And it does scale up, just gotta make sure that you use the right, essentially, quartz and levels. Let's start with the most important thing of all, the weapon. This is how I get these runs, these sub 1 minute boss elims, and I just deal so much damage. The Azure Dragon Crescent Glaive. Mine is maxed out at +5 and is currently cranked to advanced. That is because in my skills, everything is maxed out at 100, but let's just say you were starting a brand new build, you would instead crank this to technique because it is default B scaling on technique and C on motivity. You would go for a technique build and get your most damage out there. Once you have maxed out your technique, you then start leveling up your motivity, still keeping it cranked on technique until you get to maxed out motivity, or I'd say about 70 motivity and 100 technique. Then you crank it to advance, so you can still get an insane amount of damage and then get a little bit extra when it comes to any elemental affinities, including fire, electric, and acid. So the main bread and butter of this weapon is its Fable Art. It's Blade Fable Art, and I'm just going to show this by... well, it's really hard, but I'll do my best to... if I can just not dodge through it. It acts as a perfect parry with the same timings. So as you saw, it is not the easiest to time, and you can actually control the movement. See, if you just hold the direction and then press the button, you will move in that direction. By default, you move backwards. And that helps because this weapon does have a long range. And as you can see, it does parry red fury attacks. If I can... there we go. Now, the next most important part is, we'll just change display, deflect counterattack. Use in time with the enemy's attack to deflect it and dodge it back. While dodging, follow up with a normal or special attack to deal more damage. Meaning you follow up with a normal attack or a light attack, or if you want to, a special attack or a heavy attack, and you just simply press those buttons or press those shoulder buttons or trigger button, depending on your input source. I'm using mouse and keyboard right now, so I'll just say buttons. Has the exact same parry timings as a perfect guard, so just make sure you're aware of that. And it is what helps me do a lot of damage, and I just did about 3,000 damage there. And this is indicative of what you'll be doing to bosses, assuming I have the right elemental affinity. Here, let me show you. It should be over 3,000. Yep, because this is a puppet. Okay, now that I have the basics of the weapon, I will get into its Fable Arts in a minute. Like I said, it is a little bit more in depth, but I want to also go over the amulets, let's try that again. The equally important part of this build. So the biggest one you want is the Conquering Amulet. This is obtained by trading King's Flame Folco's Ergo to Alidoro or Hugo. And instead of grading the weapon, you get the amulet, because upon successful perfect guard, temporarily increase the damage inflicted by weapon attack. So your next weapon attack will deal more damage, and I think that's about 30%, which is insane. Another one that is also beneficial that would help in any build is the Extreme Modification Amulet, which increases weapon attack in proportion to number of Fable slots. Let me translate that. So up here is my Fable, where the blue bar is. Every single bar that is blue, not simply just grayed out, you get additional damage. So I have 5 bars filled, I'm getting 5 additional points of extra damage. That's not 5, it's not a flat 5, but it's bonus damage per Fable bar filled. I don't know the exact amount, I'd have to look that up. But it is a nice on top, cherry on top, if you will. The next one that is also important is temporarily increase physical damage upon successful attack with the Arm of God amulet. This stacks 4 times, and again, it's just free damage for a temporary amount of time so long as you keep attacking. Let me show you. Let's go over here. So see how next to the puppet thing up here, it's gonna be right about here. So right here. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4. And it just stays at 4 and just keep dealing so much damage. Like, a lot of damage. Now, after a certain amount of time, it will go away. So you want to try and keep the aggressive, keep the offense, and just keep getting hits in. That'll ensure that this amulet is always active. The next one is Assassin's Amulet, which increases your critical attack. That being, let me translate it, it gives your weapon a critical strike chance, which is about 10, 20, 30% additional bonus damage on top of whatever damage you already will deal. Most weapons have a 0% critical strike chance. This happens to give it a 30% critical strike chance. If your weapon already has a 30% critical strike chance, I believe that goes up to, let me make sure that's clear, up to 60%. So weapons like the Proof of Humanity or Trident of the Covenant will get that 60%, up to 60%, excuse me, critical strike chance. And then last but not least is the amulet with the affinity of your enemy. So you're fighting a puppet, you would want the Puppet Destroyer's amulet. You're fighting a human, like any of the Black Rabbit Brotherhood, Luxasia, or Manus, just for naming some, you would want the Murder Puppets amulet. And if you're fighting a Carcass like Andreas or Green Monster of the Swamp, you would want the Carcass Butcher's amulet. It's self-explanatory. But let's just say you're fighting something like the Green Monster of the Swamp, you'd want both the Puppet Destroyer's amulet and the Carcass Butcher's amulet, just so you can constantly be dealing the most amount of damage possible. Let's put the critical strike chance amulet back on. Alright. Now that's out of the way, let's go back into Fable Arts. So upon landing a successful deflect counterattack, you want to follow up with a light attack almost every time until you know the boss's move to where you can confidently and effectively, if I can land it, it's not easy, as you can see, follow up with a heavy attack. And just keep in mind that the heavy attack is equivalent to that of a charged heavy attack, so as long as you have the timing down, you will always land a charged heavy attack, doing insane amounts of stagger damage, insane amounts of damage, and just overall high damage, I should say. That's what this weapon is, just a high damage machine. Now, one thing, in my opinion, you never want to use is the handle Fable Arts. It's not bad by any means, but it's a lot less effective than the deflect counterattack, which, let's keep this in mind, the Storm Slash has 3 Fable Bar uses. The deflect counterattack has only 1. Let's just try and do some numbers real quick. Just first off, with the right build you can be dealing about 2,000 damage. That's just a light attack. With the heavy attack, you're going to be dealing about 6,000. And lastly, about 5,500 with a Storm Slash. For 3 Fable Bars and 5,000 damage, I can get, what is that, 6, 18, 12, 18,000 damage. Just for the same 3 Fable Bars. That one is a little bit less. But still, the damage is about the same. Not that you should never use it, but I would not recommend it if you don't know how to properly use it. And I do know how to use it properly, but it's almost always as a finisher or an attempt to quickly build stagger, since it does do that really, really well. Let's go over the boring part. I don't want to, so what I might do is just simply gloss over them so you guys can pick them out and see what I have chosen in terms of quartz and the P organ upgrade. That is also, in addition to the weapon, an immense benefit to your build. So let's just start with going phase for phase. This is heavily favored towards this build. You'll see a lot of Fable, enhanced Fable Arts attack. I think all 3. The Fatal attack, it just happens if I manage to get a stagger off, but if you're doing sub-1-minute boss builds, you should never ever get a stagger off. The only boss where you should get a stagger off of is Romeo, King of Puppets. Not the King of Puppets, the second phase, Romeo, King of Puppets. So, yep, as I just scroll through here, or mouse over them, whatever, click on them, kind of see what ones I've picked out, and not all of them are required, but ones that are important are for certainly this. Perfect Guard Weapon Durability Recovery, because that pairs nicely with, where is it? Enhances weapon durability, or attack when weapon durability is at maximum. That just, it works so well. As well as anything that helps reduce the weapon durability. Let's see. I don't know where it is. I gotta find. There it is. Lowers weapon durability consumption. So you just get your weapon durability back, and then perform a deflect counterattack. Use it up, so you get that damage constantly refreshing and staying at its maximum, which is always good. Let's go back up here, if I can. Ones that you definitely want are the amulet slots and the Fable bars, as mentioned earlier. The increased special grindstone uses I just simply fill to fill. One that you do want is, let's see if I can find it. Oh boy, it might be a minute. I haven't been actually looking at these. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. Use special grindstone increase effect duration 1. You definitely want both of those. Excuse me. Just because that way it lasts actually 60 seconds, so you can get those sub 1 minute hitless kills in. But yeah, as I finish this out, like I said, this is for a new game plus 2 build, focusing on making sure your weapon durability is full, your Fable is full, so you can constantly get that bonus damage. Make sure you chain as many light attacks together as possible, followed up by heavy when you have the opening, and just all around as much damage as possible. Now you might have noticed I have no pulse cell upgrades, and I also have only 7. So there's a reason for that, and I'll show you right here. Sorry, I had to catch my breath real quick. Let's just get back to this. The reason why I only have 7 is it's very simple. I have the upgrade which allows me to charge Fable upon pulse cell use, as you saw. So let's just say I miss a dodge or something, or I just want to try and get as much Fable before going to boss. It takes 7 pulse cells to fill up an entire Fable bar, as you see in the top there. And now I'm out of pulse cells. I'm in a discharge state, so I'll also be dealing additional damage, as you saw in my quartz upgrades. And I want to show you what that's like. I I was gonna try and parry Romeo's Firefall attack, but since I'm just explaining this, I'll do this right here and try and go for the hitless build. Hitless run. So yeah, make sure that we got everything. Just grindstone. All of our amulets are set. And I'll see if I can do the 4-hit combo. And so say cheese it. Come on. Oh, I didn't do enough damage. Cool. Oh, yes. That's how I skipped the first phase. Cool. Aw, I missed it. Fuck. Let's get our damage back. And just like that, I defeated the King of Puppets. It's not that hard for me. Let me make that very clear. It's not that hard for me. I've done this, I've been doing this. It's not a challenge. However, for you, you will have to constantly learn the boss's attacks, and when you are able to and unable to perform a successful follow-up attack in the form of a light attack, and also, as you saw, when you have openings for a heavy attack. But yeah, it's really fun and really enjoyable. Not to mention rewarding as hell once you finally pull it off, especially a sub 1 minute boss defeat. So this is how I do it, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll do my best to answer any and all, but for now, peace. I'll see y'all later.